The sky turned dark like a broken promise, as Eli ran through the open field with his coat flapping behind him like a flag of fear, and the wind screamed in his ears like a wild beast trying to swallow the world whole, and every step felt like he was sinking deeper into the mouth of something old and angry and full of teeth. He looked back and saw the clouds twist like giant hands, ready to crush everything, and he knew he had only minutes before the storm would catch him and break him like a twig under a boot. So he pushed forward with all the strength left in his tired legs and ignored the pain in his side and the wet cold creeping into his shoes. The ground was soft and muddy, and every step pulled at him like fingers from the deep, and he thought he would fall and never rise again. But then he saw something ahead, something low and strange, half hidden under vines and dirt and rust, and he ran faster, because it was his only chance, and he could not die in the open with no one to remember his name. It was a door made of old iron, thick and scarred with time, and it stood in a mound of earth, like a mouth waiting for a scream. And Eli grabbed the handle and pulled, and it groaned like something waking from a long sleep, and inside was only darkness, and the smell of metal and dust, and old secrets. He stepped in because there was no choice, and the wind slammed behind him like a wall, and then the door moved on its own and closed with a slow, heavy thud, and he stood in the silence that followed with only the sound of his own breath loud in his ears. He turned on his flashlight, and the beam cut through the dark like a knife, but the air felt too warm, too still, too full of something that did not belong, and the hallway stretched ahead, narrow and low, and covered in peeling paint and marks he could not read. Eli moved slow with each step, careful, like he was walking into the mouth of something that was pretending to be a home, and the light flickered once, twice, and then stayed steady, but his heart beat faster because something was wrong with the silence. It was not empty, it was waiting. He passed broken chairs and old crates and wires hanging from the ceiling like dead vines, and he saw claw marks on the wall, deep and sharp, like something had once tried to get out, and that was when he knew this place was not just old, it was dangerous. Then he heard it, a soft sound like breathing, but not his own, and he froze because it came from ahead, and it was steady, slow, deep, and it did not stop. And then a voice came with it, low and dry and full of something cold. The voice said words that made his skin crawl and his breath catch in his throat. "My fast ends today." Eli took a step back, but the door behind him was closed, and the sound of it shutting still echoed in his bones, and he knew that he was not alone, and whatever was in here had waited a long time not to be alone anymore. He raised his light and aimed it into the shadows, and something moved just beyond reach, something large and slow, and watching him with eyes he could not yet see, but could feel like ice on his neck. The floor creaked, and the air felt tighter, like the room was shrinking, and the whisper came again, not louder but closer, and it spoke not with hate, but with hunger. Eli gripped a piece of broken pipe from the floor, and held it like a weapon, though he knew it would not help, because whatever was down here had not feared humans in a very long time. The voice asked if he was real, if he had truly come, or if this was just another dream, another trick of the long sleep. And Eli could not answer, because his mouth was dry, and his mind was full of sharp fear. Then the thing moved again, and this time the light caught a glimpse of something not fully human, not fully beast, something with skin like old stone and eyes that shimmered with a light that came from no sun. Eli knew the storm outside had chased him into something worse, and he did not know if the wind had saved him, or served him up like a gift to something that had waited under the earth for years, without food, without sound, without hope. And now he had come, and the thing was no longer alone, and neither was he. Eli stared at the closed door behind him. His fingers reached for the handle, but it did not move, it did not even shake, as he pulled with both hands, his breath quick and loud in the silent bunker, his heart pounding like a drum in the dark. He stepped back and looked at the heavy bolts that had slid into place by themselves, not rusted, not jammed, but smooth and firm, like someone or something had wanted it locked and sealed from the inside, not to keep the storm out, but to keep something else in. The whisper from the shadows had stopped, but the silence was worse. It felt heavy, thick, like the air had weight, like it was pressing down on his chest and wrapping around his arms with hands he could not see. He turned with his light toward the hallway again, and took a slow step forward, his eyes on every shadow, his ears trying to hear through the ringing fear in his mind. The place was old, but not abandoned. Wires still pulsed with faint energy, lights blinked in corners. Screens, long dead, sparked with weak color as if waking from sleep, just like the voice had. Eli passed what looked like a control room, the door half open, the inside glowing green with an old monitor still humming with weak life. He paused, but did not enter, not yet. Something deeper in the bunker was calling, something soft, low, like a heartbeat under the floor. He moved again, careful not to step on glass or metal. His flashlight caught shapes ahead, crates torn open, rusted tools, old rations, all scattered like someone had searched threw them in panic or hunger. Then he found a room filled with writing scratched into the walls. Not human, not any language he had seen before. It curved and twisted like it moved. Even though the wall stayed still, and when he stared too long, his head began to ache and his skin felt cold. He turned away fast, breathing hard, but the symbols stayed in his mind, like they had crawled inside and sat there waiting. That was when he heard the whisper again, not in the air, but in his head, this time gentle, slow like wind through dead leaves. You are not the first. The words shook him more than the storm ever could, and he backed up into a metal cabinet that clanged loud against the wall and echoed through the halls like a bell rung for something old. And listening, he waited for the sound to fade, then slowly looked down the hallway toward where the voice had first come from. A dark room waited at the end, and he knew something was inside because the air grew warmer with every step. Close to the light, dimmer, like something was swallowing the beam. He stopped at the door and stood still, listening but hearing nothing, not breathing, not movement, not even the hum of power anymore. He pushed the door open, and his light touched the edge of a large room filled with machines, broken chairs, and something sitting in the middle, something still. It looked like a throne built from scrap wires, metal bones, and it sat in it with legs, crossed arms resting on bent pipes, and eyes glowing dim like embers from a fire nearly gone but not cold. It spoke not with a mouth, but in Eli's thoughts, and the voice was older than anything he had heard before. I dreamed for years, but now I smell life. Eli felt his knees weaken, his grip on the pipe slipping, his voice caught in his throat. He asked what it was, not aloud, but in his mind, and the answer came with no name, only a feeling of waiting, and hunger, and deep sleep filled with darkness and silence. The creature said it was left here, sealed, forgotten, buried by both enemies and allies, as a mistake too dangerous to wake, too strong to kill. It said it tried to sleep forever, but the hunger stayed, and the dreams became worse. And now, Eli had come and broken the silence, and brought life back into its world. Eli took a step back, but the voice said, "Do not fear me yet. I do not wish to consume the first voice I have heard in 100 years. He asked why it had not eaten before, and the creature laughed soft and bitter and said, it had once been a man, or something like one, but time and pain and war had changed it into something else, something that still remembered what it was but could no longer return. Eli asked why the door had closed, and the answer came slow, because the place had been built as a prison, and the systems still worked, and they knew he had entered, and they always closed for one thing, feeding. But now the creature was not sure what it wanted anymore, because for the first time in a century, someone had looked into its eyes and not run or screamed or attacked. Eli stood there facing something ancient, something starved and broken and wise, and he knew this place was not just a shelter, it was a story waiting to end or begin again, and now it waited for his next word, his next move, and the bunker stayed still, as if the whole place breathed with him. Eli stood still at the edge of the chamber with his flashlight pointed toward the figure on the throne of scrap. The light flickered again, but did not go out. It shined just enough to show the long limbs folded like a machine at rest, the shoulders wide, the arms like cables, and the face hidden in shadows, except for the two faintly glowing eyes, watching him without blinking. The air smelled like old fire and metal, and something sweet and wrong, like rotting fruit, mixed with smoke and blood. And Eli could feel the taste of it on his tongue, sharp and bitter, as he took a step forward without meaning to. The creature did not move, but its voice filled his head again, low and quiet, like someone whispering behind a closed door. You do not run. I wonder if you are brave or broken. Eli's fingers tightened around the pipe in his hand, though he knew it would not help against something this old and strange, and he asked what the thing was and what it wanted. The creature lifted its head slowly, and the light caught its face, part of it still human, or at least shaped like one, the mouth dry, the jaw sharp with marks like cracks in stone, and it answered not with pride, but with sorrow. I was a soldier once. It said there had been a war long ago between human colonies and alien forces who tore through space like fire, through dry leaves, and this bunker had been a place of last stand, a final stronghold that turned into a tomb. It said it was part of a special unit built to hold the line soldiers who took injections, who merged with machines, who gave up their names for codes and numbers and mission goals. But something went wrong inside the walls. Something infected the systems, or the minds, maybe both, and the others died, or changed or disappeared, and this one remained not dead, not alive, only waiting. Eli asked what it had eaten during all that time, and the answer came after a pause, like the words tasted bad. At first I fed on rats, then mold, then memories I forgot. My name then. I fed on silence and dreams. Now I am hungry. Eli stepped back, but the creature did not move, and its voice softened like it wanted him to stay. But I do not wish to feed on you, not yet, perhaps not ever. You speak and listen, and that Is rare that is new. The lights in the ceiling buzzed once, as old energy pulsed through the wires again, just for a second, and Eli saw more of the room shattered screens. Broken armor pieces, bones and old bloodstains. Long dried, he asked why the creature had not left the bunker, and it said the systems would not allow it. The doors were locked from the outside. The codes long lost or wiped clean, and besides the world above had no place for something like it. You are the first I have seen. In so long, your voice shakes the dust from my mind. Your presence burns away the cold. Eli tried to understand if it was lying or playing some long game, but its eyes did not move. They stared, not like a predator, but like something tired, something that had waited too long to remember what it had waited for. He said he only came to hide from the storm, and the creature replied, perhaps the storm brought you for me. The words made Eli cold again, not from fear, but from knowing that maybe fate had twisted the wind to guide him here, like a key falling into an old lock. He asked what would happen now, and the creature stood slowly, not rising in anger, but like a man waking after a long sleep, its body tall and built like a machine made of flesh and armor and sorrow. Now you speak, and I remember. Now you breathe, and I remember. Now I ask you one question. It stepped forward just enough for Eli to see the marks on its arms, strange glowing lines like veins made of light, pulsing slow and steady like a heart. Will you help me remember who I was? Eli did not answer right away, because he did not know, because he had come to escape a storm. Not unlock an old secret, not speak with a relic of war that had waited for voices in the dark. But he looked into those eyes again, and saw no hunger, no fire, no trap, only hope, a thin thread, fragile as a whisper. He lowered the pipe in his hand just slightly, and said, maybe, and that was enough for the creature to smile just a little, and then the lights flickered again, and the door behind them opened just an inch, and wind blew in, not from outside, but from another hallway deeper into the bunker, and something far below moved. Not all memories are silent, some have claws, some still breathe. And now they were no longer alone in the dark. The wind from the deeper hallway grew stronger, but it was not cold. It was warm and thick, and carried with it the scent of rust and smoke, and something older than both, like the dust of stars, or the breath of buried time. Eli turned his light toward the corridor behind the throne, and saw nothing but black walls curving down into the earth, like a tunnel built to hide the bones of a giant, and the air pulsed like it had a heartbeat, slow, steady. The creature stood still beside the throne, its glowing eyes dim, but watching every move Eli made, and after a long moment, it spoke again in that voice that lived only in thought. You are not like the others. You stay, you speak, you do not scream. Perhaps you would like to live. Eli gripped the pipe again, not sure if he should run, or stand, or fall to his knees. The words did not sound like a threat, but they also did not sound like a promise, and the storm outside seemed far away now, like a dream or a memory he had left behind. He asked what the creature wanted from him, and it tilted its head just slightly, the way a machine might when it heard a strange sound. I want your stories. Eli blinked, confused, then asked why, and the creature turned and walked slowly back to the throne, its movements careful, almost graceful. I have lived in silence so long that even the screams faded. I remember war, but not the reasons. I remember pain, but not the cause. I remember faces, but not names. I remember I was a man once, or something close, and I think your voice is the thread that leads me back. Eli stepped closer, unsure still, but something in the creature's words touched a strange place in his chest, a place that understood loneliness without asking. So you want me to talk, not just talk, the creature said. But remember with me, speak of your world, your people, your hopes and dreams. Tell me the things I lost, and I will not feed, not on you, not on your kind, not yet, perhaps not ever. Eli thought for a long breath, then nodded slowly. He did not know if this was smart, but it was better than waiting for something worse to come from the deep hallway. And the idea of helping something find its past felt better than running from his own. He sat on a cold crate, and rested the pipe across his knees, and looked at the creature now seated again, and said, fine. Let's start with names. Do you have one? The creature closed its eyes, and the room felt heavier, like time itself was slowing, like the bunker was holding its breath, and then the voice returned, softer now. I had a name. It was numbers at first, then a call sign, then nothing now. Perhaps you may give me one if you wish. Eli thought, then said, how about Ash? The creature opened its eyes, and a faint glow passed through the cracks on its skin like light moving through glass. Ash. Yes, I remember fire. I remember Ash. It will do. They sat in silence for a moment, and then Eli began to speak. Not grand stories, just simple ones about rain on metal roofs, about music played from old radios, about the way his mother laughed, and the way his father fixed broken machines with hands that never shook, even in war. Ash listened without blinking, and the walls seemed to breathe with the words, as if the bunker itself had ears that had waited for stories to fill them again. After a while, Eli asked if there were others like Ash, and the answer came slow and heavy. There were many once like me, not all made it through the war. Some broke, some changed, some became worse. I stayed, I watched, I forgot until now. Eli asked what was deeper in the tunnel, and Ash turned its head toward the black hallway and said, "Echoes of what? Of hunger, of mistakes, of what I might become if I forget again." Eli felt the weight of that sentence, and knew he had stepped into something much larger than himself, and yet here, he was speaking to a relic of war, and calling it by name. Ash said the door, deeper in the bunker, would open soon. It always did when someone new arrived. It would test them both. It would offer a path forward or backward. Eli asked what he should do, and Ash answered, "Stay with me, or run into the dark. Those are your choices, but if you stay there, is a chance for both of us to change." Eli did not answer right away. Instead, he looked at the hallway, then at Ash, then at the door behind him, still locked, still silent. He thought of the storm outside, and the silence inside, and the voice that had waited years just to hear another voice again, and he said, "Then I will stay, but you have to promise not to forget again." Ash nodded, once slow and sure, and the lights in the hallway began to glow, like something far below had heard every word the deal had been made, and the dark was listening. Ash sat quiet again, on the throne of bent metal and cracked stone, its glowing eyes closed, its body still, like a statue waiting for wind to bring it to life. And Eli sat across from it, on a crate worn smooth by time, his fingers laced tight around the broken pipe. Though he no longer raised it like a weapon. The air was quiet but not empty. The warmth of the bunker felt different. Now, not like danger, but like breath returning to lungs that forgot how to breathe. The silence no longer pressed down on Eli's chest. Instead, it listened. "Tell me another story, Ash," said the voice, softer now, like dust falling through light. Eli nodded and spoke about his old town, not the storm-torn one where he'd grown up alone after the floods, but the place his grandmother once described: the green trees, the market streets, the sound of children running through alleys with sticks and dreams. Ash did not move, but his body pulsed slow with dim light, as if the words carried something. It needed something. It had starved for. Eli told stories of music heard through broken speakers, of laughter in dry places, of strangers who helped each other without asking for coin or name, and with each word the bunker seemed to stretch less, the walls felt less sharp, the floor less cold. Then Ash spoke, its voice like distant thunder. "Under quiet skies, I remember a song." Eli paused, his mouth open, but no words came, and Ash continued, "It played once from a ship, before it fell, before everything fell, a simple tune, with no words, just sound, warm sound. I remember listening through the helmet glass, before the silence took it all." Eli leaned forward and hummed a slow tune, the one his father used to whistle while fixing their broken heater, the one that somehow always made the cold feel less cruel. And Ash sat still and listened until a single sound escaped. Its mouth, not a word, not a whisper, just a breath, like a ghost of the tune. "It hurts," Ash said quietly. "What does?" Remembering. Eli looked down, then back up and said, "Remembering is better than forgetting, even if it burns." Ash opened its eyes slowly, and in the soft glow something had changed. Not the shape, not the steel skin, but something deeper, something behind the eyes, something lost, trying to come back. "I see a girl," Ash whispered, "who a face, maybe mine, maybe hers, maybe both, a sister, or a memory. She had light in her hands and fear in her eyes, and she called me by a name that I cannot find." Eli reached into his coat and pulled out an old photo, bent and faded, of his own sister, who vanished years ago when the storm drowned their world, and he held it up without speaking. Ash stared at it for a long time, and then said, "You carry memory like a weapon." Eli nodded. "Sometimes, that's all we have." Ash stood then, slow and tall, its back brushing wires that dangled like vines from the ceiling, and it pointed toward the deeper hallway, where the dim lights now flickered steady like a path waiting to be walked. "The deeper chambers hold the rest of me, Fowl's machines, memories frozen in cold sleep. If we reach them, maybe I will know who I was, and maybe I can be that again." Eli stood too, unsure why he trusted something made of metal and time and forgotten war, but he did, because this thing did not feel like a monster anymore. It felt like a ruin trying to rebuild. They walked together into the tunnel, the air growing thick with heat and silence, the light dim, but not dying, the path curving downward like a spiral into a wound. Ash paused before a locked door and pressed its hand against the panel. The screen blinked once, twice, then turned green, and the door hissed open, revealing a room filled with frozen capsules, shattered monitors, and long dead sparks of power. "One of these," Ash said, "was mine, or still is, or holds what I once was." Eli stepped inside with careful feet and saw the names on the capsules, scratched with codes and numbers, but one had a faint name, almost gone, but still there. "Alex." Ash touched the glass, and stood still. The glow in its arms brighter now, and the air in the room felt like it held breath, like even the dust waited. She called me that, Ash whispered. Then that's your name. Ash turned to him, its voice full of something not hunger, not silenced, but something that sounded like hope. Then help me remember all of it, not just the name. Not just the song, but what made me human before the steel, before the silence, before the hunger. Eli nodded and sat beside the capsule, his voice ready, his memories sharp and real and full of warmth, and the room listened as two voices filled it, one from the past, one from the storm, and both still alive. And somewhere deep inside the walls, the silence began to crack like ice touched by fire. Alex stood in the middle of the memory chamber, the glow along its arms brighter now, pulsing like blood that had found its way home again. The capsule marked with its old name stood behind like a mirror into a life it no longer fully remembered, but could no longer forget. Eli sat beside it, cross-legged, flashlight at his side, speaking slow, telling more of the world above, stories of oceans and broken cities, of voices lost in wind, and songs hummed beside firelight. With each word, Alex seemed to shift, not in shape, but in presence, the stillness it carried for so long now replaced by small movements, fingers twitching the angle of its head, changing shoulders, rising and falling, like breath returning to a machine. A sound filled the bunker. Then a low hum rising from the deep walls, not threatening, not sharp, just present, like the building itself had started to wake. The systems are listening, Alex said quietly. Listening to what? To choice. Eli looked around and noticed lights blinking on panels that had been dead before. Screens flickering with code written in symbols he could not read. Locks sliding open along doors deeper into the bunker, like a path forming step by step. What's happening? The facility was never just a shelter. Alex said it was a forge, a place to make something more out of broken soldiers. But it needed memory, it needed purpose to begin again. You brought both. Eli stood slowly, uncertain if he should feel pride or fear. I didn't do much, I just talked. Words are more than sound here, Alex said. They are keys, they are fuel, and they woke me up. Another door opened, then across the chamber, this one wider, colder. Mist spilling from its edges, and the smell of old chemicals and rust came through like breath from a metal mouth. That's the core, Alex said. If I go in, I can recover the rest of what I lost, but it will hurt, and it may change me again. Maybe into something better, maybe into something worse. So why go in? Because I would rather risk pain than return to sleep. Eli walked toward the door, with Alex beside him, the mist curling around their legs like fog from a dream. And inside the room, metal arms waited, frozen in place, machines shaped like claws and needles and cages. Eli stopped at the edge. I don't trust this. Neither do I, Alex said. But sometimes trust is not needed, only will. It stepped into the chamber, and lights above blinked to life, casting golden color on the machine's skin, and Eli watched as the panels closed around it, like the chamber had been waiting all this time. Monitors lit up, words scrolling faster than Eli could read, and a voice began to speak, not from Alex but from the ceiling, from the system itself. Unit recognized, memory core, active restoration. Protocol online. Eli backed away, unsure of what he had started, but unable to turn his eyes from what was happening inside. Alex did not scream, but the lights in the chamber flashed sharp and fast, and its body arched within the machine, as if lightning moved through every wire in its bones. The glow from its chest grew stronger and stronger, until the whole room pulsed with the light. The system spoke again. Emotion archive found, initiating reintegration. Then came silence. The chamber door slid open again, and Alex stepped out slow. Its arms dim but steady, its eyes no longer glowing, wild but soft with color, closer to human. Eli looked at it carefully. Did it work? I remember her now. Alex said her name, her voice, the day she gave me the necklace. That's still in the locker by the door upstairs. I remember my first mission. I remember why I stayed. I remember I chose this. Eli stepped forward. You chose to stay in the bunker. I chose to protect this place. When everyone else ran, I was meant to guard the archive, not because I was forced, but because I believed it mattered. Then why did you forget? Because memory was locked away to protect it, and me, and when the others left, I became the lock. Eli said nothing for a long time, then asked, and now the lock is open, and I am not alone. They walked back toward the main hall together, the air no longer heavy, the silence no longer sharp, and as they reached the control room, the lights along the wall lit in slow lines, revealing a panel. Glowing green door to surface ready. Alex turned to Eli. You can leave now. The storm has passed. What about you? I can walk the world again now, but only if I choose, or I can stay and rebuild this place into something better, and if I stay with you, then we both begin again. Eli looked at the door, then back at Alex, and nodded. Let's finish what time tried to bury. And together, they stepped toward the light that would lead them back to the world above, or forward into something new, waiting. beneath the earth where silence once ruled alone. The surface door hissed as it opened, the first breath of air from above brushing against Eli's face, soft and cool and full of dust and ash. But no longer wild, no longer screaming like before he stepped out, first blinking at the gray sky stretched wide over a broken landscape where buildings leaned like tired giants, and trees bent low, as if bowing to something they could not see behind him. Alex emerged slow and steady, its steps sure but quiet, its shape still tall, still armored, still marked by time and war, yet something about it now felt different, softer, more awake, more real. They stood together on a ridge where grass had begun to grow again in patches between cracked stone and rusted metal, and for a long moment neither spoke because words could not match the silence of a world just beginning to breathe. Again, the storm is gone, Eli said finally. No, Alex replied, the storm has only moved. Eli looked across the empty land and wondered how long it would take for people to return, for cities to rise again, for voices to fill the wind instead of thunder. Do you think they'll come back? They always do, Alex said. Eli, turn to it then, asked Andrew. What will you do now? Alex stepped forward, scanning the distant skyline where towers once stood and green once bloomed, and its voice came steady. I was built to guard and to destroy. I became a weapon and a ghost. I forgot who I was and waited for time to eat me whole, but now I remember, and I choose to build. Eli felt something tighten in his chest, not fear, not sorrow, just the weight of meaning, as if the words carved new roads into the ground beneath them. Then we build together. Crithrox nodded and pointed to the bunker entrance behind them. Its lights still on, its doors still open. That place holds more than machines. It holds history, files, tools, fragments of a world once full of life. We can use it, we can make it matter. And I thought of the capsule marked Alex, the old logs, the sleeping archives, still buried deeper within, and the idea of rebuilding felt less like a dream, and more like a direction. They began walking down the slope, past shattered vehicles, and old warning signs faded by time. Past bones of machines and silence once loud with war, and Eli saw how the land had started to shift, how nature had begun to take back the edges, and how that meant there was still time to shape what came next. At a small rise, they stopped again, and Alex bent low, lifting something from the dirt. A rusted sign bent and half buried. It said Shelter 09, the place I was meant to protect. Alex said, but not just the walls, not just the data, the people, the stories, the hope. Inside. Eli reached out, took the sign and planted it upright in the soil, not as a warning, but as a marker of something beginning again. You remember everything now? No, Alex said, but I remember enough, and that is more than I ever hoped for. They returned to the bunker and spent the next days pulling wires, restoring power, connecting old systems that still blinked with hidden strength, and with each moment Eli saw more of who Alex had once been, and who it had chosen to become. No longer just a relic, no longer just a weapon, but something with purpose, something reaching for light. After years in the dark, one night, they sat beside the open door, looking at stars dim behind clouds, and Eli asked, do you still feel hunger? Alex turned slowly and answered, yes. But not for flesh, not for silence. I hunger for voices, for memory, for connection. I hunger to be more than what war made me. Eli smiled and looked up at the stars. Then you're human, after all, and for the first time. Alex laughed, a sound deep and strange, and full of warmth. Like stone cracking open to reveal fire inside. The world around them stayed broken, but no longer dead, and as the wind moved gently across the land, the last storm faded into memory, and what remained was a bunker filled with light. Two figures seated at its edge, and a story not ending but just beginning, and beneath that sky filled with ghosts and new chances, they began to build, not from fear, not from orders, but from choice. Because the storm had passed, because the silence had been broken, because remembering was the first step toward becoming something new.